Welcome to Chisholm Trail 61. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make Swedish meatballs, and also we're going to do that step-by-step canning of them. We're going to do that right now. Okay, I'm going to be doubling this recipe. What I'm going to be giving y'all, the recipe I'm going to be giving y'all is going to be for 2 pounds of ground beef. So anyway, you'll need 2 pounds of ground beef. You'll need 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of parsley, a couple of shakes of Italian seasoning, a half teaspoon of salt, and a half teaspoon of pepper. Now for the sauce, you'll need a can of cream of mushroom soup, 3/4 cup of beef broth, a teaspoon of Worcestershire, the W sauce. You'll need 1/2 teaspoon of parsley, and you'll need a couple of shakes of the Italian seasoning. What we want to do is we're just going to take all of our sauces, all of our spices, and we're just going to dump them in over our thing here. And it just wells to get your hand dirty. Now, let me tell you, something you never do is you never use iodized salt when canning. That's kosher salt. And you either want to use kosher salt or you want to use sea salt, something to that effect. Never use iodized salt. Because what iodized salt is not good for canning. And also, you never use canned dairy products. So, don't put any egg in your meat when you're planning on canning it. Don't do any crackers. You can't can bread. Bread is a no-no in canning. So crackers, anything like that, you just want the meat and the spices. Now the spices you can vary. You just don't need to get really more than a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons per quart jar, or 1 tablespoon per pint jar when you're canning those spices. But you can put any spice, any deviation of spice, anything like that that you want to. You don't have to just stick by the guns of what I'm telling you on the spices. Your spices are very flexible. If you like more onion powder, then put more onion powder. If you like more parsley, then put more parsley. If you like more Worcestershire, then feel free to do it. Just your spices and stuff is going to be totally up to you. So you just want to get this mixed in really well. Like I said, the biggest thing is your salt. Just never use like table salt, because table salt's iodized, and iodized salt is not good for canning. And another thing you want to remember when you're canning is you want to sort of take note of how much black pepper you put in. Now I'm using peppercorn, ground pepper, but the thing you want to do is black pepper has a tendency to get stronger as it sets on the shelf in your jar. So you really want to pay attention to how you do your pepper, how much pepper you put in it. So I think we about got this mixed up here good. So what we're going to do is we'll take and roll them out into meatballs and put them on the skillet. I'm going to go ahead and get my stove on, my oven, and get it started preheating to 350 degrees. We'll be parbaking these for 15 minutes in the oven. We don't want to completely cook them. We just want to get them parbaked. But we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we're going to roll our meatballs out just about a 1-inch meatball. I got my cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. We don't want to make them real big, but try to get them as close to all uniform size as you can. Just roll them out 1-inch size. Of course, they're not going to be perfect, but you want to try to stay as close as you can to the 1-inch size. Just roll them good. They will, since we're going to parbake them, they will stay together during the canning process, and you'll see that when we go take the jars out of the canner. We just want to get them all rolled, do all of them. We're going to pre-bake them, parbake them at 350 degrees for about 15 minutes. We just want to get them started turning brown, and so that they will stay together in the canning. Just remember, now we didn't put no egg, no crackers, no type of bread, anything like that in our meatballs, because we're making these to can. We're not making them to go in the freezer or to, just cook and eat. We're making them so that we can them. That way we can put them on the shelf. They'll be shelf stable. They'll be ready whenever we get ready to use them. All we'll have to do is just take them out, dump them out of the jar, and then put them in whatever dish we want to. If you want to use the sauce in it and you want to thicken the sauce some, you can always add a little bit of flour to it or something at the time you open the jar and go to warming them up. But like I said before, you cannot use no type of thickener in your canning. They do make sure gel and clear gel, but that's for pie fillings and for jellies and things like that. Sure gel you use in your jellies, clear gel you use in your pie fillings. Now those are designed to stand up during the heat and pressure of canning. Although your water bath canning, your jellies and your pie fillings will be water bath can, but they won't fall apart in the process of the canning of those. Now, so you just can't put any type of thickener, anything like that, but anything that you can, like I do a chicken and gravy that I can that's really good, and we'll do a video on that in the near future. But all you have to do is, whenever you open it up and you go to warm it up on the stove, you want to bring it to a boil and let it boil. The USDA used to say for 10 minutes, which is what I still do. I boil everything I can, unless it's jellies or pie fillings, something like that. But any meats or vegetables that I can, I bring to a boil, let them boil for 10 minutes, and then I eat them. By doing that, you eliminate any possibility of there being any bacteria. And if there was some bacteria got into the jar in some way, then they say by keeping them at that temperature for that length of period, it will kill the bacteria. Now, they now say that if you follow all the procedures that's set forth for canning, home canning, then you can skip that 10-minute process of boiling and just heat it up. But I still boil mine. I'm not telling you to boil them. I'm not telling you not to. That's just what I do because I just feel safe. And I'm not going to keep you here and make you watch me roll up 4 or 5 pounds of hamburger meat into meatballs. You just want to roll them in about 1-inch things, and you see how I'm putting them on the cookie sheet there to go in the oven for 15 minutes. So we get them all rolled up and take them out of the oven. Then we're just getting our sauce ready to put in the jars with the meatballs. What we have in here is 1 can cream of mushroom soup, 3/4 cup of beef broth, 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, 1/2 teaspoon of parsley, and a couple shakes of Italian seasoning. All we need to do is just heat it to a boil, stirring it occasionally. We're going to let it simmer for about 5 or 10 minutes to meld the seasons and spices together, and then we'll be ready to start ladling and filling our jars. Okay, we're ready to start filling our jars. Now what we're going to do, we got our funnel on our jar. Our jars are clean, they're hot. You got hot products, hot canner, hot jars. We're just going to take and drop our meatballs down in our jars till we get it filled up to the 1-inch line, which is the bottom of the funnel on this funnel here. If you don't have a marker, it'll be right below that bottom ring on the jar. That's the 1-inch line on the jar. And then we just fill them up with meatballs, and then we're gonna ladle our sauce in there, and we'll put them in the canner. So we're going to do a couple of them here to show you how. I'm not going to make you watch me fill all of them. We'll do a couple of them, and then we're going to we'll take and come back when we have them all done. And we just want to ladle our sauce in until we get it filled to the 1-inch line. I always want to stir your sauce when you start ladling into a jar, because you want to get all the flavors in it. And about right there is about where we want to be. We want to then take our debubbler, If you watched our other video about the equipment needed for canning, you've seen us use the talk about the debubbler. That one there is just a little bit high. I'm going to take that one meatball back out of there. If you see you can't get it to go below your 1 inch mark, always take it back out, because you want to just debubble. Just slide your thing down around the sides. You can see it going down around the sides. What this does, it moves everything around in the jar, and it makes the air bubbles come out, which is what we want. You don't want to do it so hard that you tear your meatballs up. You don't want to be poking it through your meatballs. We're going to just dip our paper towel in some vinegar. That's pure white vinegar. We're going to wipe our top of our jar where our lid's going to be sitting. We'll wipe it down real good with vinegar. Now vinegar, we cut the grease, from the meat or anything else that may have got on that. That has to be clean before it was sealed. We're going to take our little thing here, and we're going to, our little lid lifter, we're going to get one of our lids out, and these are ball lids I'm using. We're going to get one of the lids out, and we're going to set it on top of the jar. We're going to make sure that it's even on the jar all the way around. We're going to take one of our rings. We're going to put the ring on, and we're going to go finger tight. Now, what fingertip tight is, you just go till you can just turn it with your fingers just like that. You don't want to crank down, just barely get it tight, just till it's tight as you can get it just with your fingers. Then we're going to take and set it in a jar here. Going to get the jar, and we're going to put it over in the counter. And we're going to go to the next one. Again, we're going to fill it full of meatballs. And you can do this as the same process regardless of what you're pressure canning. It'll be the same process. You'll fill your jar. Pretty much everything that's pressure canned is going to be 1 inch headspace, or I think now they recommend chicken has a 1.5 or 1 1/4 inch headspace. But I still do the 1 inch headspace because that's what it's been for years, is 1 inch headspace. And you just want to fill your jars, fill it to the 1 inch thing, get your ladle, stir your sauce, ladle it up, and into the jar. Come up to the 1 inch mark, which is about right there. Now from time to time you may have to, after you debubble, it may go down so much that you will need to add a little bit to it. If that's the case, if it falls below the 1 inch headspace line, then you can always add a little bit to it. Now I was telling y'all about the measuring thing. You measure it down 1 inch, just barely touches the top of your food there. I'm trying to get it where you can see what I'm talking about. It's just barely on the top, just barely touching the top. So that's 1 inch of headspace. Dip a rag in the vinegar, or a paper towel in this case. Take and wipe. Now you want to be wiping the top around, and you also want to be wiping sort of around the side while you're wiping, to be sure that nothing gets in it. You also want to make sure that there's not any chips in the top of your jars, because if you got a chip or something, it will not seal on it. Get you a lid with your lid lifter. Place it on the jar. Be sure it's centered good. Get you a ring. And again, just fingertip tight. Then in the canner with it. We'll put it in the canner. This 23-quart canner, it can hold up to 18 pints. We're canning in pint jars today, but the recommendation is never to can with anything less than 2 quarts or 4 pints in it, which in any canner, which will have more than 4 quarts. But anyway, we're going to finish filling the jars. They'll all be done this exact same way. I'm not going to make you sit and watch me fill however many jars it turns out to be, but we'll be back when we get them all in the canner and show you how many we got. Okay, we wound up with 7 jars, and this is a prime example of why I save anyway, my old lids and bands. I had 7 jars. I wanted to get 9 in the bottom so they're not banging around and busting a jar during the canning process. So I just filled up 2 of them with water, put an old lid and an old ring on them, and that way these two doesn't matter if they seal or not. This is my Swedish meatballs. So what we're going to do now, we got the canner centered on our burner. Always center your burner. The Presto canner has a notch on the handle, and it has one on the lid. I try to get it there where you see that little notch on the lid. And what you do, you just line them 2 notches up. You can see the little lock thing. This is going to snap under. Just line those 2 notches up and it'll fall down on. Turn it all the way till it locks into place. What we want to do, we want to turn the burner all the way up, just about to high. Not completely on high, but I mean just between medium high and high. And we want to let it just sit there until we get a good steady stream of steam blowing out of this vent right here. And whenever that happens, we'll bring you back. Okay, we got a steady stream of steam coming out. I don't know, you may not be able to see it on camera, but it's blowing like a freight train. Notice that the little lock has popped up, so we know we're ready to start our timer now. So we're going to set a timer for 10 minutes and let this steam for 10 minutes. So Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes, counting down.
Okay, and when our 10 minutes is up, we'll bring you back. All right, the timer's going to be going off here in just a second. It's been 10 minutes, just about. All right, we've just been letting it blow steady stream. We still have our burner on almost on high like we did before. We hadn't touched our burner. Notice our lock is up. Everything's going. Our timer is fixing to go off just any second now. We're counting down on it. 3, 2, 1, and there goes our timer. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to take our weight and we're just going to drop it over our vent so that it can start building pressure on our gauge. Now all we want to do is we still leave our burner turned up like we had it. We don't do anything else now until we get up to our amount of pressure we need to can at. Mine is 12 pounds because of my elevation. Now you need to know what your elevation is, and then you can find out what pressure you can at. It could be as low as 10, it could be as high as 15. If you use the weighted gauge, it'll either be 10 or 15, or one or the other. But if you use the dial gauge, it could be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15. If you use the dial gauge, you want to be sure at least once a year you go to your local county extension office and have them test your gauge to make sure that it's accurate. They'll do it, there's no charge for it, they do it for free. But anyway, we'll be back when we get up to 12 pounds of pressure, and we'll show you the next step then. We're at 12 pounds of pressure now, so we're going to set our timer for 75 minutes. Siri, set a timer for 75 minutes. If we was doing pants,
1 moment.
If we were doing pants, we do
1 hour and 15 minutes.
We do pants for an hour and 15 minutes. If we was doing quarts, we'd be doing an hour and a half. And what we got to do, we got to turn down our burner to our sweet spot to maintain that pressure. Now, if that pressure drops below 12 pounds for me, or below whatever canning pressure you need to can at, then you've got to start that timer all over again. Now, it may go up, like if mine goes up to 13, I'm not worried about it, but I just want to keep it right around 12 pounds. You never want to let it drop below your pressure that you're required to can it, because if it does, then your jars may not seal properly and your food may not be safe. So it's very important that you maintain that pressure throughout the canning process. Like I said, if it drops below that pressure, whatever pressure yours is, 10, 11, 12, up to 15, then you need to maintain that pressure, because if it falls at any point below that pressure, then you have to restart that timer all over again. Like in this case, that's with the pants, it would be 75 minutes with that start over again. But we got our burner turned down on our sweet spot. I know where my sweet spot is on the stove to maintain my pressure. You'll figure that out just by canning and playing with your stove, turning it up a little, down a little, watching your gauge. And we let it go like this for 75 minutes, and then at the end of the 75 minutes we'll be back and we'll show you what happens next. Okay, while we got a minute here, we're waiting on our timer to go off on the canner. I just wanted to show everybody a really good website to go to. It's the National Center for Home Food Preservation. It shows canning, freezing, different things. All you got to do, you see the address to type in the bar, nchfp.uga.edu, and you'll pull up this page here, and all you want to do is you can click on the menu then, if I can get, and the menu will pull up, and the can, freeze, dry, whatever, you can just click on how do I can, and it'll go to this. It'll give you a list of items that you can can. General information, meats, vegetables, and then you can click on, if you want to can vegetables, just click on vegetables, how do I can vegetables, and then it'll give you a whole list of vegetables that you can can. And all you got to do is just click on one of them. Let's say if you want to can, we'll pick one out here, whole kernel corn. Just click on whole kernel corn. It'll tell you exactly how much you need for a canner load, what to do with it, the procedure to follow, hot pack, the cold pack method, and down here it'll also give you the times for the weighted, this is for the your altitude, and then you can also get your times for your canners, your amount of pressure by your elevation. This is the weighted. You can see 0 to 1,000 you'd can at 10 pounds. Above 1,000 feet be 15. Now if you using the dial gauge like we're using today, 0 to 2,000 you'd be at 11 pounds, 2 to 4,000 12 pounds, 4 to 6 13 pounds, and then 5,000 on up to 8,000 be 14. And then anything above 8,000, of course, you would be at 15 pounds of pressure. So that's a real good website to get some good recipes, learn a lot about canning things. And I just wanted to hop on for a minute while we're waiting on the canner to stop there and show you that. Canner's got probably just a few more minutes, and we'll be back whenever our timer goes off for it to finish up the canning we're doing today. Our timers went off now on the stove, on the canner. So what we want to do, I'm canning on a glass top stove, so what I want to do is move it off of the heat. Now if you're canning on a gas stove, you can just turn the heat off. You don't have to worry about keeping and moving it off the burner. But electric stoves tend to hold the heat on the burner, and so we want to get it off. Now a couple of tips: stay close to your canner when you're canning. So you monitor your pressure. You don't want your let your pressure drop below what it's supposed to be at, because you have to restart that canning process time again. Another tip: if you live in an area where you have hard water, you can take, after you wipe your rims, the white vinegar that you use to wipe your rims, just dump what's left over in your canner, with your water that's in the canner, and that'll keep your glasses, your jars from turning smoky and getting that white film on them. What we want to do now, we're just going to let it sit untouched until the pressure drops down to 0, the little lock drops down and releases. And then we'll be back at that point to show you finish this up. Okay, our pressure's dropped down to 0 on our gauge. Our lock has dropped down. So now what we're going to do, we're going to remove the weight just to be sure that we don't have any pressure left in our canner. And since that has come off, there's no pressure left in the canner. Now we're ready to remove the lid. We're just going to twist the lid till it unlocks and pick it up. Always pick it up away from you because of the steam. Now you don't want that steam hitting you in the face. And then we're just going to set this over out of the way. We're going to take our jar lifter, and I'm actually going to get these 2 jars of water out of here first because they're not going to do anything for us. So I'm just going to get these out and set them over here to the side so that they'll be out of the way. Now we're going to get our Swedish meatballs out. Oh, there goes a pop. That's always a good sound to a canner. You want to hear your jars pop, because when they pop, they're silly. And you can see they're still bubbling hard. So that's a good sign too. When you see them still bubbling, that's always a good sign that your canning is done good. We don't have any seepage, siphoning, it don't look like. So the water is still clear in the bottom of the canner. So looks like this turned out to be pretty good here so far. You have that. You can see the meatballs in there, and the way it's boiling. What you never want to do when you're taking your jars out, you don't want to tilt your jars over. That water on top of them, that'll dissipate and dry off. You don't need to tilt your jars, because if you tilt them and get something in under the lid, then they won't seal. So there goes another one. I hear another one pop. Yeah. A quick way to tell by looking if they've sealed, you can see how, like, this one doesn't have the dimple on it, but you can see the dimple on this one here. Hear them popping there? That's a good sound for a canner, because when they're popping, that means you've done it right, and your jars are sealing like they're supposed to. Now, what we do, these are set here till in the morning. Leave them set 12, 24 hours. Any of them that don't seal, you can take and just put in the refrigerator and use them, eat them over the next 2 or 3 days. If you eat them in the next 2 or 3 days, then they'll still be good. Ones that sealed, what I'll do, I'll take and wash the jars with soapy water, warm soapy water. Like I said, that'll be tomorrow. I'll take the rings off, wash the jars with good soapy water, wash the rings, the bands there, and then I'll label them, what they are, Swedish meatballs, put the date on them, and always label and date your food, because there's so many times people say, well, I remember what that is. I remember when I did that, but a year and a half from now, you may look at that jar and say, now what is that? What did I do there? When did I do that? So it's very important to label all your jars and put the date on them, so you know. That way you can rotate your pantry. You can keep it rotated, so you're always keeping the freshest on the shelf and rotating your food as you do it. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's the canning process from start to finish. If you have any questions, comments, leave them on the video. If something you'd like to see us can, something in particular, or something you want, would like to know if you can, just ask us, send us a comment. If you would, give us that thumbs up, like, share, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Those of you that subscribe and like our videos, we really appreciate it. Hit the notification bell if you want to know when we post videos. We try to post 2 a week, sometimes 3. But if something in particular that you want to see us can, want to see us cook, we do cooking videos. Then just let us know. We'd be happy to try to work it in. If there's, you have a question, I got a video where I go over the canning tools that you'll need to do the canning. All your tools, some books that are really good books. You can refer back to it in the videos, our videos on YouTube. Just like, subscribe, and we'll be here for the next one. We appreciate it.